So pretty soon it's going to be coming up on time to do the third maintenance interval on my truck. As you know, it's 2020 Ram 1500, so it's got the Gen 3 EcoDiesel in it. The engine's been out on the market now for what, 18 months or so, about 12 months in the Jeeps and about 18 months in the Rams. So it's still relatively new. So, you know, when I do these service intervals, I've kind of been going through what you're going to be looking at. You know, if you're shopping these trucks, if you're new to them, you know, I've kind of been going over what you're going to be looking at. So obviously, each time you do a service interval, you do the engine oil and the engine oil filter. And I've done videos showing you the spec for the oil, the numbers on the filters, and, you know, all that kind of thing. On the second maintenance interval, we also did the fuel filter. The manual tells you that you have to do that every other oil change. So the last video showed you the part numbers on that. This is the third one, so what I'm going to do on this one is, in addition to the engine oil and the engine oil filter, I'm going to do the differential fluids. Now the manual says you can go 30,000 miles if you tow quite a bit, or you're using the truck in dirty conditions or severe conditions. You can go 30,000 miles between actual fluid changes. I'm going to be probably around 16,000 miles when I do this tomorrow. So it's a little bit early, but as we all know, the first time you change your oil, the first time you change your fluids, it's a good idea to do it a little bit early, you know, because you will find that they get some metal contaminants, some shavings, and, you know, some break-in material in the fluid, in the oil. So it's always a good idea to do the first one a little bit early anyway. And I have been towing quite a bit with the truck, so I think you're going to be surprised at how dirty and contaminated the axle fluid is when we change it. But I'm going to show you that a little bit later, because on these new axles, you know, if you remember, Ram trucks used to have those rubber plugs. You know, on the inspection cover you would have a rubber plug instead of having an actual, you know, screw-in cap, and then you wouldn't have a drain port at all. So you had to pull the inspection cover off each time you wanted to do a differential fluid change, which was just stupid. And those rubber caps always leaked, seemed like. But the new ones have been improved. So you do have, you know, an actual drain plug and a fill plug that are threaded in on the axles, front and rear. So it's really handy to do in the future. But for this first one, I am going to pull the inspection cover, because it's a good idea to go in there and clean the magnet, get the break-in shavings off the magnet, and clean everything out. So I am going to pull the cover off, and it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know if they use a reusable gasket or if they're still just using RTV silicone or whatever on there. We'll see when we go to do it, but we'll get to that in just a minute. I wanted to show you that process. Real quick, I want to discuss a new oil that I have discovered thanks to a member on the Jeep Gladiator EcoDiesel forum. So as you know, the Gen 3 EcoDiesel has a completely different oil spec now. And it is right here, MS12991. Right there. This is Quaker State Ultimate Durability Euro Full Synthetic 5W40. This oil is an oil that checks all the boxes. If you look at your owner's manual, come on camera, API service SN, it's the proper viscosity, and it has the FCA, or now Stellantis, specification on the bottle, so it checks all the boxes. This is a perfect oil to use in the new Gen 3 EcoDiesel. And the great thing about this oil, thanks to the fellow on the Jeep Gladiator forum who pointed this out, is that you can normally find this on the shelf at Walmart, and it's like 18 bucks for a 5-quart jug. So that works out to like $3.80 per quart, which is 2 to 3 times less money than all of the other oils that I've found that have that Chrysler spec on them. So this is now the least expensive oil that I have found. You know, at least as far as the MS12991 spec oils go, it's the least expensive one that I've found. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that because you're going to need an oil that meets those specs for that engine. Now, a lot of people don't use Quaker State. It's not one of the super popular brands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send off a sample of virgin oil before it's used, and we're going to get some specs on it. Going to find out what the TBN number is on it and all the specs. You know, what does the oil look like when it's brand new? And that way, after we put 8,000 or 10,000 miles on it in the diesel engine, towing and hauling and all of that, we can have a really good comparison and see how this oil holds up over time. So obviously it's going to take a while to finish that video, probably later this summer. So check back and we'll go over that when the time comes. Okay, so let's get started on this rear differential. Now you can use a wrench, you can use a ratchet and a socket, whatever you want to do to take all these bolts out of the inspection cover. I have this nifty electric ratchet that I bought from Amazon. You guys have heard me say this is probably one of the best tools I've ever bought. I think I spent 60 bucks on this thing, and it is super, super handy. It saves the wrists and the elbows. So I'm going to use that. Probably also going to need some kind of a cat claw. You can use a flat blade screwdriver if you want. And on this particular truck, you've got a few of these little plastic retainers here that hold, I think this one might be, see, this is a brake line, you got an axle vent up there. So we'll just take the cat claw and kind of go around here and get those off, just like so, and get them out of the way, top and bottom. All right, now that we have those out of the way, we need to figure out what size the bolts are. Let's start with like a 16. This is a 14. 14's too big. Gonna have to go smaller. There's a 13. Let me just try the 12. Nah, it's got to be at least a 13. They may actually be a standard size. Yeah, I'm gonna go get my standard rail and see if it fits a little bit better, because this has got just a little bit of play. So let me go get the standard socket rail and we'll just check and make sure. Yeah, so this one that I've grabbed right here is a 1/2 inch and it fits better. So we're gonna go with that. So let me see if I can grab my little short extension. Well, I may end up having to not use the extension up there on the top. We'll start with the bottom and then go around. So obviously what you're gonna do is take all these bolts out, but pick one on the top. You got two different ones up here you could choose. Pick one of these top ones and just run it out, but leave it in. And what that'll do is it'll keep the inspection cover from falling down and making a big mess. We'll get to that in just a minute, but first let's run the rest of these out. And probably they're going to be pretty snug the first time you ever do this. So you might want to like give it a little crank to loosen it, and then it'll be easy to go ahead and run them out. So I'm going to go around here and just run these out real quick, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so now on these ones that had the retainers on there, obviously the stud sticks out farther because that's what the retainer goes on to. So you'll probably have to get a deep well, which I should have done to start with. So I went and got a deep well out of the toolbox. You'll probably need that to go ahead and get those last three out. And one more thing I'll mention is, if you look at this, hopefully you can see it on the camera, the fill port used to be on the inspection cover, but it no longer is. This is just a cover, there's no fill port on it. So if there had been, we would have taken that out first to ensure that we would be able to put fluid back in this thing when we're done. But since there's no ports on the cover, we don't have to do that, so we can go ahead and just pop this off. So let me get this deep well on here, and we'll finish taking these last three. Well, we'll take these two out, and I'm going to leave that one in but loose, and then we'll take the little cat claw here and pry the bottom of this cover and let the fluid out. Okay, so now that we got all the bolts out, just left this one in the top loose. Now I'm going to slide my pan over. You notice I got cardboard on my driveway and then the pan on top of that. Trying to keep this stuff off of the driveway if possible. It looks like that they, from the factory, have used red RTV silicone on here. So I'm guessing that means it does not have a reusable gasket. I know unlike the Jeep Gladiator with that Dana 44 Advantech axle, I'm pretty sure they're using a reusable gasket on those, but for this one, looks like we're gonna have to use some silicone to seal it back up when we're done. Anyway, take my little cat claw tool and just gently go up underneath of here and try to break this seal. And when it goes, you'll hear the seal kind of break free. And this can sometimes be a little bit of pain. There's been some times before when I've had to put a flat blade screwdriver in there and kind of tap it with a hammer or something to get that seal to break, because that silicone, once it sets up, it does really make a pretty good seal. I think I just heard it. Yeah, it's starting to go. Get my pan over here where it's supposed to be. There it goes. And actually, it looks like that the fluid is not in really bad condition. I'm hoping that the camera is going to pick this up okay. Can you see the fluid on the camera? It actually still has quite a bit of that honey color look to it. And I expected from a lot of the pictures that I've seen, I expected this to be really dark and nasty looking by now, but honestly this fluid doesn't look too bad, so that's a good sign. It's a real good sign. And this is the reason why you leave that top bolt loose. You leave it in loose so that you can drain this fluid out, but you notice that I'm not having to hold the inspection cover in place. It's not falling down, making a big mess, landing in the pan and all that. It's kind of a breezy day, so I'm having to move my drain pan around to catch it. So that's basically all there is to that part. I'm gonna let it finish draining, and then I can take this last bolt out and remove the cover, and we'll look inside. All right, so once we're on the inside here, and I need to get a flashlight, but down in the bottom of the case there's usually a magnet, and what we're going to want to do is take some blue shop towels or something and clean all this out and clean that magnet off, and just basically make sure you don't see anything abnormal up here. Obviously your ring gear, your pinion gears, all that stuff should have all of their teeth remaining, and it goes without saying that you should be able to visually not see anything abnormal going on in here. But at 16,000 miles you wouldn't expect to. If something goes wrong in here, you'll know it, because it'll be really noisy when you drive the truck. So I'm going to clean this out. Everything looks pretty good on this one. Now this is the 392 axle ratio, and so the manual says that we have to put 75W140 full synthetic back in here. Some of the other differentials that are available on the Ram 1500 require different fluids, so just look in your manual, see which one you need. There is a max tow package, or whatever they call it, that actually has an inspection cover that has coolant lines running through it to keep the differential cool. And there's also a standard differential with 321 gears. They all have different fluid requirements, so just check your manual. But for the 392 axle, like I have here, 75/140 full synthetic is what we're going to put back in here. But for now, I'm going to get some towels, clean out the bottom of the case, and then unfortunately we have to go through and scrape this excess silicone off around the bolt holes around the case here, clean that up so that we can put the new one back on. So I'll be back in just a minute. So I just rubbed my finger on the magnet. I wanted to try to show you that. See that? That came off of this magnet right here. So, even though the fluid looked pretty good, obviously the magnet was doing its job. You could see, the all the gray and silver in the metal shavings and break-in material that was stuck to the magnet down here. And that's exactly the reason why the first time around I think it's a good idea to take this cover off so you can wipe the bottom and clean everything out. And then after this, it shouldn't be as bad from here on out. And we'll be able to just use the drain port down here and drain it and refill it after that. But anyhow, I'm going to finish cleaning this up, get that silicone off there, and then we can button it back up. Now, you'll probably find that removing this old silicone from your inspection cover and from the differential case is going to be the most aggravating part of the whole job. Just get you a good razor blade or putty knife or something and just kind of go around and scrape all that excess off. It doesn't have to be completely perfect, but you definitely want to get all the excess off, because when you put the new bead of silicone around here, you want it to be able to mate up and seal good when you put the cover back on. So unfortunately, this is just part of the process. Okay, so I got all the excess silicone scraped off of there and off of the differential housing over there as well. So now I'm going to go with the new fresh silicone and put a fresh bead around here. And after that, I keep saying silicone, but I mean basically you're using just a gasket maker. After that, we can put the cover back on and bolt it all back down again. All right, so I got my fresh bead on there. This is going to be a little bit tricky, trying to get this up around the sway bar there, because I don't want to accidentally rub off the silicone gasket maker, whatever you want to call it. And it's not always real easy to do. So all right, find my holes, set it into place, and when you fill it, squish down a little bit, just hold it there for a moment. And get a couple of these studs, get them started in here. And then we're going to give it time to set up. So of course what I meant to say is you put all of them in there, tighten them down, and then let the silicone set up for a while before you put the fluid back in. Okay, so there's the fill and drain is down there. Well, hard to see. Over there. Oh, right over there. But anyway, fill plug is 8mm, and you're gonna need 8mm hex for the fill plug. So this is the fluid that I'm using. Just picked it up at a local Walmart, and these bags are really cool because it makes it so much easier to twist and turn up in there and get the angle that you need to get the fluid in. But 75-140 full synthetic is what we're going to put in here. And this one also has a limited slip additive in it, so if you have the track lock option, then this has already got the slip additive in there. Cool. So I keep referring to this stuff as silicone, but it's just ultra black Permatex gasket maker. That's what it is. Now the black is oil resistant. There's the red one that's more heat resistant. For this application, it doesn't really matter. So that's pretty much all there is to the rear. You're going to fill the fill port until you see fluid running out, and then put the plug back in. You want the fluid level to be at the bottom of that hole. That's pretty much all there is to it. Now on the front differential, it's completely different. I'm just going to drain and fill. You're going to use that same 8mm hex to pull your fill plug out, then pull the drain plug out, drain your fluid, put your drain plug back in, fill it up the same way. So it's a whole lot easier and a whole lot more straightforward. And it's very easy to get to on these trucks as well. On a lot of trucks, the front differential's a nightmare. You got cross members and everything else in the way, but on these Rams, it's really simple. So it's like maybe 2-minute process to do the front diff, so no big deal there. Anyway, the front differential housing is aluminum, completely different type of fluid, a little bit lighter fluid, so we're going to do the 7590 in the front differential. Yeah guys, so that's pretty much all there is to the differential fluid change. It's actually really easy on the Ram trucks, and it's something you can do at home, save yourself a ton of money, because even though it's a simple job, if you go to the dealership, they're going to try to charge you a lot to do that. So just, you know, go to the store, get some synthetic fluid, just basic hand tools, and you can do it at home. Like you saw in that last clip, the front differential is a piece of cake. The fill plug and the drain plug are right there. Both of them are the 8mm hex. Piece of cake to drain and fill that one. Easy access. So that one's a piece of cake. You know, the rear one takes a little bit more time, but it's still not too bad. And once you do it the first time and clean everything out, then after that we can just do a drain and fill on the rear also. So in the future it'll just be really simple 5-minute job on front and back. So anyway, just thought I'd show you that if you haven't seen it. Maybe you're new to this, maybe it helps somebody out, I don't know. Hopefully it does, but now I just have to do the engine oil and the oil filter, and the third service interval on the third gen EcoDiesel will be done, and another 10,000 miles, we'll do it again. Appreciate you guys watching as always. If you got any questions, leave them below. I'm going to go tally up and see how many votes we have for the next tire that we're going to review on the channel. So far it looks like the General Grabber X3 was in the lead by 1 vote earlier today, so going to go check out that video that I posted yesterday and kind of see where we stand. Should be interesting. But anyway guys, I'm going to get off here for now. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later.